Nosferatu is a vampire horror film originally released in 1922, based off of Bram Stoker's Dracula. It was an unapproved adaptation that was later sued and almost completely destroyed. Thankfully, it wasn't, and it was very successful. The story still thrives independently today. Since its original release, it has been remade a few more times, the most recent one being the 2024 version, directed by Robert Eggers. This is the one I'll be focusing on. The film fits well into its genre. It follows the main character Ellen, who, in the opening scene, calls out for a spirit of comfort and accidentally awakens the vampire, Count Orlok. The film cuts to Ellen, now older, married to Thomas, but still she's haunted by her past. Thomas leaves on a business trip and Ellen's state only gets worse. Count Orlok eventually travels to Germany to go after Ellen, but she refuses to reunite with him. He spreads the plague, killing many people, including their friends, Anna and Frederick. Eventually, she surrenders herself to him and they both die, freeing Germany from the plague.
I have no more tears to shed.
What about this film makes it so horrifying? I mean, clearly it deals with darker themes, disease, death, paranormal activity. At a surface level, it's probably from the vampire, right? Let's take a closer look. We all know what a vampire is. You've seen or heard of many. Even though they're all different, they have distinct similarities. That's what classifies them as a vampire. In the realm of literary criticism, those known as structuralists tend to look at patterns throughout literature and connect them at a larger scale. They look at the sign, or image created from patterns, and what the image or concept, the signifier, has signified across media. These terms were used by Jacques Derrida in his work of Structure, Sign, and Play in the Discourse of the Human Sciences. I will not be directly quoting this because I don't want to. This is not a super niche way to analyze media. In modern times, the same analysis is typically done through the idea of a trope. Philosopher Roland Barthes was a structuralist known for his essay, The Death of the Author. In it, he examined the total existence of writing, saying a text is made of multiple writings from many cultures and entering into mutual relations of dialogue, parody, condensation, but there is one place where this multiplicity is focused on, and that place is the reader, not, as was hitherto said, the author. The reader is the space on which all the quotations that make up a writing are inscribed without any of them being lost. A text's unity lies not in its origin, but in its destination. Barthes' explanation of the structuralist viewpoint highlights the significance of the vampires across all media. Count Orlok in Nosferatu is that much more significant when acknowledging the vampires across the entire culture. Human history has always explored mythical creatures and foul beasts. There is a deeper history as to why Count Orlok is scary, why we go into the film knowing that he is the villain. The physical characteristics are the first things you can identify in a vampire. John Gordon Melton is a scholar and author of the Vampire Almanac: The Complete History. If you couldn't tell by the title, the book closely examines almost every vampire, historically and fictionally, over human history in over 200 articles of analysis. Under the category Characteristics of the Vampire, he describes that vampires are like normal human beings in most respects and thus are able to live more or less comfortably in modern society. They are different, however, in that they possess a pair of fangs, tend to dress in formal wear with an opera cape, have a pale complexion, sleep in coffins, are associated with bats and only come out at night. Their fangs are used to bite people on the neck and suck blood, the substance from which they are nourished. Fangs have become the single most recognizable feature of a male or female vampire, immediately identifying the vampire character to the audience and signaling immediate danger to the prospective victim. This seems obvious to us now, but it's important to identify. When we look back at all the vampires I mentioned before, they all have this look. No, Edward Cullen isn't wearing an opera cape, but he meets the criteria. The same goes for the most recent version of Count Orlok. There's been a lot of backlash for this character design as opposed to the original 1922 look. Some of the biggest problems being his mustache, lack of traditional fangs, and his six-pack abs. But while this look does stray away from the typical vampire we're used to now, it still stays true to the original inspiration for Dracula, Vlad the Impaler, a brutal tyrant in Romania during the age of the Ottoman Empire. Alternatively, it's a look of any nobleman of the 11th century, which is when Count Orlok was alive. To the audience, his outfit, mustache, and of course his castle all signify how disgustingly wealthy he is. Vampires have always been a metaphor for greed. Even Karl Marx referenced them in Das Kapital, saying, "Capital is dead labor that, vampire-like, only lives by sucking living labor, and lives the more labor it sucks. Their disgusting level of wealth often exaggerates the power dynamic between them and their victims. Along with their blood-sucking and murderous tendencies, this makes them all the more fearful to the victims and the audience. We are aware of their capabilities due to constant exposure to them. James Craig Holt, another author of several vampire and Dracula analysis novels, also examines vampiric characteristics at a closer look. In his book, A Century of Draculas, he wrote, "Each of these major 19th century vampires resembles the other in some aspects, cold white skin, blood hungers, mesmeric powers, but each is a unique character. Despite their differences, all the 19th century vampires are figures of evil." He carries on to describe multiple varieties of vampires, describing Dracula as a powerful authoritarian figure who has few restraints. He is a creature of great hunger who rejects all of the conventions of a civilized society in order to satisfy his urges. In his representation of the other, the foreign other, and the other within, Dracula celebrates self-gratification and self-assertion. Their physical differences, the non-human attributes, along with their wealth, are tools. It brings them that much closer to their end goal. This is clear in Nosferatu. The sole reason for any of his decisions is based on his desire, his yearning for Ellen. Throughout vampire history, unique measures have been developed to defeat vampires. For example, crosses, garlic, wooden stakes, and sunlight are often the kryptonite for these creatures. When Thomas stays overnight at a Romanian inn near Count Orlok's castle, the locals are clearly terrified. They have a display of crosses on the path towards the castle. They put a virgin on a horse to hunt vampires. And this is actually a sort of historically accurate depiction of a real Albanian vampire hunting practice. These methods of protection are more than just gimmicks. Their real-life existence shows how terrifying vampires really are. The fact that vampire hunting kits were sold, practices were done, graves were destroyed, all shows that even in the real world, we're terrified at the thought that they might exist. Caitlin Doughty is a YouTuber and mortician who focuses on educational videos of funeral industry reform and morbid history. In her video, America's Forgotten Vampire Panic, she explores America's history with this hysteria. She details specific cases and the extreme methods taken to destroy the vampires. Doughty explains the criteria used to identify a vampire.
To a New Englander, you might be a vampire if you die, usually younger. Your family and or friends start dying too. Your family and or friends complain of night visitations from you. Your corpse does not appear to appropriately decay. There's blood in your corpse's heart, liver, lungs, really any major organs. Your family and or friends say you're a vampire.
I bring this up because American history is not so far back. It's pretty recent. Sometimes I feel like we look at the fear of vampires as something older. No, we're not afraid of it anymore. Now it's entertainment. I know vampires aren't real. That's just not true. We've always been afraid and taken measures to soothe that fear. This historically human fear is what is mimicked in these films. The victims, or possible victims of Count Orlok, are terrified of what their fate could be. Even in Germany, Professor Willem Dafoe recognizes Ellen's melancholy as something supernatural. Though he's an outlier compared to the rest of German society, the fact that he's there shows that no culture is above their fear of vampires. All that being said, Count Orlok clearly possesses all of the signifiers and signified concepts of your classic vampire. He's terrifying. Of course he's the villain, the monster, right? When looking through a feminist criticism lens, there is something present that's more horrifying than any vampire could be, and that is a sexual woman. To explore this, we need to take a look at Anna. Anna is married to Frederick, who is Thomas's best friend. In the film, Anna and Frederick have probably been married a few years prior, being that they have 2 younger daughters and a third on the way. Anna is the ideal wife of the time period. She's proper, she submits to her husband. But this is not to say she's a one-dimensional character at all. Anna has a deep and meaningful friendship with Ellen. In fact, their friendship is probably the deepest and truest love in the entire film. Every other relationship is tainted in some way. Anna is everything that Ellen is not. Ellen is outwardly opinionated, sexual, decisive. She is emotional in every sense of the word and lets people know it too. This is where the horror truly arises in the film. In the book, Women and Other Monsters, author Jess Zimmerman explores the female creatures throughout folklore from the perspective of feminist criticism. Her analysis can provide a close examination of Anna and Ellen's roles. A third of the way into the film, there's a scene on the shore where Frederick and Anna discuss Ellen's worsening melancholy. The conversation quickly shifts to Anna's pregnancy through flirtation.
How was our little Friedrich?
Well, hungry as always, like his father. Friedrich in public.
Cannot resist you, my love.
Initially, Anna pushes back his advances, but by the next line, she's leaning in. This reaction is what differentiates Anna from Ellen. In Women and Other Monsters, Zimmerman wrote, "A man's appetite can be hearty. The ideal woman has no appetite. This is not to say that she refuses food, sex, emotional effort. To refuse is petulant, which is ironically more demanding. The woman without appetite politely finishes what's on her plate and declines seconds. She is satisfied and satisfiable." Anna plays the role she's expected to. Again, she's the ideal woman. Frederick despises Ellen because she's the opposite of Anna. Up to this point in the film, Ellen has made several sexual advances towards Thomas, and at inappropriate times. In the beginning of the film, he's nearly late to work because of it.
Take off your shoes.
I wish I could stay, my love.
Thomas is flattered by her sexuality. In fact, I would argue that he sees her as somewhat of an equal. When Thomas is offered a job opportunity in Romania, Ellen is distraught and begs him not to go. Thomas hears her, reassures her that her friends will watch over her and he will not be gone long. However, her opposition to Thomas's job opportunity and her hypersexuality is why Frederick despises her. I say hypersexual because she's painted and viewed as that, but she's not more sexual than anyone else. She's just unaffected by social expectations of purity. The only reason Anna is not hypersexual is because she follows societal rules for a woman. In the words of Zimmerman, "A person who has learned to make herself physically and emotionally small, to live literally and figuratively on scraps, admitting to any appetite at all is admitting to monstrous gluttony. A woman with an appetite is always voracious. Her hunger always overreaches because it is not supposed to exist. If she wants food, she is a glutton. If she wants sex, she is a... If she wants emotional caretaking, she is a high-maintenance, or worse, an attention whore. An amalgam of sex hunger and care hunger, greedy not only to be paid, but most unforgivably of all, to be noticed." This explains why, throughout the film, Frederick can't stand Ellen's outbursts. To him, she is the attention whore that Zimmerman describes. But it's not just Frederick that feels this way. The audience starts to agree with him as the film goes on. Admittedly, I rolled my eyes at Ellen when I saw this scene.
You must listen to me. We're all in the most grave danger. I throw myself into
Flower Hutter, please.
Why do you hate me?
How dare you speak to me in that marked manner?
You have never liked me. Never.
Know your place, madam.
I will not stand by and pretend at your superiority.
I refuse
Why
to
can you not hear
exchange
me?
reproaches with you.
Listen to me, please.
Of course, after my eye roll, I was disgusted at my own reaction. Why did I just do that? Why am I siding with a man who just told a woman to know her place? Initially, you try to justify Frederick's reaction to her. Philosopher Simone de Beauvoir, in her feminist analysis book, The Second Sex, said that no one is more arrogant towards women, more aggressive or scornful than the man who is anxious about his virility. That being said, Frederick sees Ellen as a threat. Not only does she defy his superiority that naturally comes with his manhood, but her close friendship with his wife could influence a similar behavior in Anna to develop. For a split second, you get Frederick's side. You roll your eyes at Ellen. I am a victim of these ideas as well as the perpetrator, but it's not just me. Remember when James Craig Holt said, in his representation of the other, the foreign other, and the other within, Dracula celebrates self-gratification and self-assertion. In Judith Butler's feminist book, Gender Trouble, she says that women are categorized as the other from the man. The woman is the foreign other and the other within. Replace Dracula with Ellen in that quote and it seems to be describing her exactly. So you can throw all the stuff I said about vampires and structuralists out the window. The film's goal is to make it harder for the audience to differentiate Ellen's appetite from Count Orlok's. Once this goal is achieved, the woman is no less monstrous than the vampire. Earlier, I compared Anna and Ellen so much against each other, you probably would assume that there's competition between them. But that's not true. In fact, it's the exact opposite. Judith Butler and feminist Monique Wittig claim that lesbianism is a third gender. I'm not an expert, but this is in reference to the specific way gender is defined in their feminist studies. Gender is not equivalent to sex. Gender is defined by the constructed roles determined by society but associated with sex. In Butler's book, Gender Trouble, she discusses Wittig's claims, saying, "The subject, with its attributes of self-determination, appears to be the rehabilitation of the agent of existential choice under the name of lesbian. The advent of individual subjects demands first destroying the categories of sex. The lesbian is the only concept I know of which is beyond the categories of sex." In this theory, lesbianism is not womanhood. It is absent of womanhood and manhood. It defies gender. This is where Ella and Anna's friendship falls. In their one-on-one scenes together, they have more substantial conversation than any other characters. In the beginning, they discuss the concept of destiny and how it differs from God. They love each other completely and unconditionally. Their friendship is not tainted by Ellen's sexuality, opinions, etc. Anna's role as the ideal woman does not exist in their friendship. The night before Anna is attacked by rats and given the plague, the most beautiful scene in the entire film happens.
Our friendship is a precious balm to my heart. Forgive my chiding you.
Thank you for loving me.
Aside from death, their relationship with one another is the only opportunity they have of freedom. Freedom from gender and the roles they are expected to play. To further support this idea, let's look at Thomas and Frederick's friendship. It's built upon admiration. Their only conversation together at the beginning of the film is based on appreciation for each other's accomplishments as a man. Their ability to build a family, hold down a job, etc. Their friendship is gendered. Ellen and Anna exceed gender. Whether it's platonic or romantic, as some fans like to theorize, their friendship still falls under lesbianism as explored by Butler and Wittig. Anna's death is what pushes Ellen to search for liberation. Their only source of freedom was ripped from them by the plague. This is what makes the ending hit so hard. Speaking of, when Ellen is confronted in person by Count Orlok, he calls her an enchantress, not for humankind, and we, the audience, begin to believe it. While she's possessed, she says to Thomas,
You could never please me as he could.
Judging by all these scenes and comparing her to Anna, Ellen isn't as clean-cut as the audience maybe wants her to be. She has levels to her. She loves her husband, but she likes how Count Orlok makes her feel. She despises Orlok, but she lusts after him. By the end of the film, Ellen is expected to make a choice. Count Orlok vows to vanish up the lives of her loved ones over the course of 3 nights. Actually, it's 2 nights, but whatever. He tells Ellen, "Upon the 3rd night you will submit, or he you call your husband shall perish by my hand." Essentially, she has to kill herself or kill her husband, and make the decision fast, or else everyone she loves will also die. And they do. Anna dies, and Frederick dies not too far after that. Eventually, Ellen decides to submit to Count Orlok, and in one of the final scenes, they have sex while he drains all of her blood. He is so distracted by her in this moment that he doesn't realize the sun has come up. But he doesn't burn from the sunlight. Robert Eggers, the director, commented on this final moment in an interview with the New York Times. Eggers said, "I need to have a beautiful sunrise at the end. It's actually in folklore that the vampire must be in their grave by the first cockcrow. So it's not the sunlight killing him, it's the purity of dawn." Now, Ellen probably died from blood loss, but with her soul intertwined with Count Orlok in their ceremony, she could have just as easily been killed alongside him in the purity of dawn. She is impure, as the rest of the film, characters, and even herself have suggested. Again, she has sexual urges and acts upon them. She makes her opinions known. She's not the ideal woman. Maybe that's part of the reason why we get annoyed at her sometimes. She's not following the rules. We're mad that we're upholding the standards when she's not. However, in this context, her death has a silver lining. Society, spoken through Frederick, views her as monstrous for her appetite. To them, she is humiliatingly autonomous. For this final moment, Ellen chooses to kill herself rather than kill Thomas, who has unconditionally loved her. I think back to the scene where she was sort of possessed.
Ellen, it's me! Ellen, I love you! I love you! You're safe with me. It's me, it's me.
Keep away from me, I'm unclean.
Never!
For one last time, she's able to show Thomas how much she truly loves him by choosing death. And at the same time, she's able to self-indulge. Maybe without Count Orlok's ultimatum, she would have stayed with Thomas forever. But in her death, she's able to satisfy her urges for Count Orlok and love Thomas, the thing she struggled to choose between the entire film. His life from then on is a testament of their love. She's able to die one last time. This is what is horrifying to the audience. In a patriarchal, phallocentric world, the most terrifying outcome is not a vampire, but a woman's liberation. The reason Count Orlok says she is not for humankind is because she can never be the ideal woman, and thus, society has no room for her. She doesn't fit in with women, and God, there's no way she fits in with men. This is why her death is liberating. She doesn't have to adhere to her role. She can be opinionated, decisive, and self-indulgent. At this moment, she is just as selfish as she is selfless. She gives up her life for the one she loves most, Thomas. In a way, she gets a very grim version of a happy ending. She saves Germany, Thomas, and she saves herself. I can't talk about Ellen's liberation without discussing Anna's tragic death. In life, she was happy. She loved her husband, she loved Ellen. She had 2 children, one on the way. But when you really look at it, none of it was hers, it was Frederick's. In his eyes, Anna is a trophy wife. Yes, he has love for her, but for him, she's a means to an end. He can't possibly love her in the way that Thomas loves Ellen or Ellen loves Anna. He is too consumed by gender roles and expectations. Thomas even tells Frederick,
I envy you. I envy you. You've truly taken your father's place now. It's incredible.
The bloody responsibility is crushing.
in a way, he's the ideal man. This is what puts so much pressure on Anna to be who she is. She has to match his energy. Anna dies from the plague, and so do her children. She dies while pregnant. It's horrifying. If you've seen the film, you probably know where I'm going. Anna and their children are buried, and Frederick has been slowly dying of the plague. He visits their mausoleum as he nears his final moments. Knowing he is about to die, he opens Anna's coffin, climbs in, her corpse before dying on top of her. Later, when Thomas and the professor discover this, they burn down the mausoleum. When I saw this scene, I thought of Marilyn Monroe. Hugh Hefner had sold nude photos of her as a minor before she was famous and didn't pay her anything. He violated her in that way, used her to make Playboy successful. When Hugh Hefner died, he was buried next to Marilyn Monroe's grave. Of course, she was dead and she had no say in the matter. He told the Los Angeles Times in 2009, "Spending an eternity next to Marilyn is too sweet to pass up." While this isn't exactly like Anna and Frederick, of course they're a married couple, it's similar in the way that Hefner and Frederick decided to violate a dead woman for eternity. In Anna's death, she couldn't escape her role as the ideal woman. Frederick didn't care what Anna would think, but he would probably assume that refusal is petulant, as Jess Zimmerman said. As the ideal woman, her life was not hers, it was Frederick's. This is why, in his final moments, he violates her, takes advantage of her corpse. Her dead corpse is not much different than how he viewed her when she was alive, as an object. Additionally, maybe he did it to combat his emotions. I mean, he was depressed and grieving. To quote Hamlet, "Frailty, thy name is woman." In response to his emotions, he felt he had to conquer her, violate her to prove himself as a man. He wanted to die as a man. So he rapes her. It's just absolutely disgusting. Anna in her life did everything right and was never rewarded. In death, she wasn't even given a chance to rest. This is the juxtaposition of Ellen's death. In life, she was herself, though society hated her. In death, she was liberated of these gender roles. Anna was imprisoned in them. By now, we've realized that no matter how much our fear of vampires has been built up over the centuries, our phallocentric worldview gets the best of us in horror. Nosferatu shows that even the most disgusting, ravenous vampire is no match against a woman who doesn't know her place. Before Anna died, her and Ellen's friendship was void of these standards. It was almost holy. Losing Anna meant that Ellen had to seek liberation of sexism. Her sexuality was demonized. Quite literally, too. I mean, she is in part Count Orlok's curse. Her death was the epitome of selfless self-gratification, and in the context of a sexist perspective, this is the most horrifying resolution possible. In Dracula, Mina, Ellen's equivalent, was rescued from Dracula, and he is killed by Thomas's equivalent, Jonathan. This is a drastic change in Nosferatu, but it makes sense. It's surprisingly progressive in a sick way. If you take the film the way I did, you reflect on yourself. Again, at first I thought Ellen was kind of annoying, but after I confronted that feeling, I've nothing but love and admiration for her. This film changed the way I view female characters and consume media. For example, recently I was reading Shakespeare's play, Measure for Measure. It's about a nun, Isabel, whose brother is soon to be executed. King Angelo says he will spare her brother in exchange for consent for him to rape her. At certain parts of the story, you find yourself saying, "Come on, Isabel." And that's what's horrifying. The play calls out the audience's sexism in a really disturbing way. That's how I view Nosferatu. My reaction to Ellen as an audience member exposes the deep roots of patriarchy from a feminist lens. I mean, the film is set in 1838. Going in, you might date the gender roles and expectations. But your reaction as the audience proves that otherwise. It shows that you are perpetuating these ideas in a modern time. The film forces you to piece together your opinions on the events and characters and reflect on your own morals. In a way, the vampire or sexuality are not the most terrifying parts of the film. It's how we view it.